everyone. I am Jessica Koch, and this is another Profound Professionals interview series. Profound Professionals was started so that we could feature amazing industry leaders from all over the world who are doing things unique and out of the box in their industry. And today we have the honor of being with Dr. Katona Linn. Welcome, Dr. Ann.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here. She helps educators create safe and supportive schools. Well, what is more wonderful than that? Safe and supportive schools are definitely needed. As the Italian mother of 7, we have done public school, private school, military school, homeschool, and we even have our youngest 11-year-old brilliant daughter is at Bay Montessori school right now. So Montessori school, and she's done a combination of homeschool and Montessori school. So schools are definitely in my conversation. Tell us how you came to be on this journey to help schools with this.
Yeah, so I'm a special education teacher and a behavior analyst by training, and I also am a child. I have childhood trauma that impacted me for a good portion of my childhood and young adulthood, and I actually got into education and became a behavior analyst because I wanted to learn more about myself. I had full-blown PTSD, and I, was back in 1970, aging myself, but we didn't talk about things. And so it impacted me in ways that I couldn't have imagined. But when I started teaching, I got into it because I got the kids, especially the kids with behavior problems. I understood them and I just felt really connected. So I became a teacher and worked with kids with autism and kids with behavior problems, and really realized that a lot of the teachers don't get a whole lot of training in college really to prepare them to work with kids with behavior problems. And so from that, I ended up becoming a trainer and a coach for teachers, and I worked at the state level here in Pennsylvania. And then I was a state project director for a federal grant that came out of the Sandy Hook and the Columbine shooting. So our focus was on preventing issues and really creating environments that are supportive, and that we're doing things that are best for the entire environment. So staff, students, all of those, and families, and really engaging all the stakeholders. And so that then the last several years, obviously the need is great. We've had more school shootings, we've had more crises. The pandemic has really created a lot more mental health issues. And so my role is to go into schools and help them look at how can they work smarter to be more effective with preventing, not just, well, we have another initiative, let's do this, let's do that. And there are a lot of things going on, and teachers are overwhelmed, administrators are overwhelmed, everybody's stressed. So I help them to look at what is going on in their environment, as well as then I do training and coaching for teachers so that they can be more successful in supporting kids that maybe have more challenging behaviors, as well as them learning the skills for their own self-care and being able to embed a lot of these things directly into their classroom and into their teaching, rather than adding another thing on top of what they already do. So that's really led me to where I am.
So your ideal target customer really is that, public school, private school, homeschool groups, maybe any kind of college, elementary as well as university. Am I missing anybody? Who else is your ideal customer?
No, generally I work a lot with K-12, but I have experience working with others, and I've actually done training and coaching for Sunday school programs. So, a lot of the same things that I do in public schools apply to really any
and daycare centers, I bet too. Daycare.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes. So what I'd say is if you're listening and you're a part of one of these organizations, if you're a teacher somewhere or an administrator somewhere, or you're a parent of a student, you could totally reach out to Anne and try to connect her or introduce her to the correct people within your school system so that your children will have the benefit of her consulting and the different programs she has to offer the school where your children are now, and all the gamut of this, just different things that we covered. So if there was one thing that you could practically list that a school could do that would really improve their safety and supportiveness for their environment, what is that one thing you would suggest that they work on and focus on?
The first thing is really kids need to feel connected.
Mm.
And if they feel connected to the adults in the environment, that's going to help them to feel safe. And that alone is going to decrease problem behaviors. They're going to be able to communicate more. And so focusing on relationships, just even getting to know the children, in your class or in your school, and making sure that there is one adult that is connected to each student so that, there's a one adult to one student, maybe they're assigned, but that we make sure that they just have a connection. They get to know the student, they know their name, they can really check in with them and find out how are you doing today, and that they have that relationship so that all students, regardless of whether they are special education or not, that that relationship really is a foundation for creating safe schools in general. And so it's just something as simple as checking in, saying hello, asking how their day is, getting to know who they are. That alone is can have a huge impact.
Well, even
So
just having a
yeah,
buddy to have lunch with when not everyone has that, right? And having that extra support just as a friend, like you said. I know my daughter in middle school was assigned to support some kids who were struggling, and she would walk them to their classes and check in on them on the during the day. And that made her feel like a superhero, and it was great for the other students too. So what a wonderful program. Now, can I ask, typically it's probably, I'm guessing it's a combination of both, but typically do these schools pay for your services outright, or often are there funding and programs at a local government level or a federal level that support them and help take care of the services you provide so that the school can benefit, and the families can benefit, but the school doesn't necessarily have to come up with the resources all the time?
yeah, and that is often a challenge. Right now, I actually, and just historically, it's been a combination.
Mhm.
Sometimes schools pay me directly.
And
Sometimes they've used medical assistance funding.
mhm,
They may use ESSER funding, which is Every Student Succeeds, and it's the recovery funding that
mhm,
came out of COVID. So a lot of the COVID funding, and
mhm,
there have been a lot of grants at the state and federal level around creating trauma sensitive schools and
mhm,
just creating safer environments. And so there are a lot of different opportunities now that, one of the good things that came out of COVID is that we actually now recognize a little bit more the importance of all of these things.
mhm,
And so there are a lot of creative ways. I've also helped schools and other organizations write grants that they've been awarded, and then I help with implementing, doing training and action plan, and set up a strategic plan so that they know exactly where they're going and what they're doing. Really helping them set up a roadmap for moving forward. So.
Before we continue to explore together a little bit more, is there anything else about your business that you'd like to share before we take those next steps together?
Yeah, I think I work with I like working with teachers and really helping them to be successful. And I also work with school leaders because their roles, they are overwhelmed as well. And how to work with community partners and families and youth more effectively. Because if, a lot of times schools feel like they have to do everything alone, kind of what you mentioned. And if we can really engage everyone and come together and it can absolutely happen. I've seen some complicated situations, and we were able to make some, great collaborations and just do amazing things if we just all connected the dots and worked together. So that's kind of another passion of mine. I don't like to go into schools and be like, you need to do what I'm telling you, but how can we look at what you already do and figure out how to work, how to get that to work more effectively and efficiently before we start adding new things. So
I love that. And your industry is unique because you're doing something amazing to support, families and organizations that support children all over. Now, one of the reasons we started Profound Professionals was also to uplift these amazing people like you, Anne, but also to share and spread awareness about great causes that are out there while we're at it. I feel like when we can throw an additional win into the recipe, why not? So is there
yeah.
a cause that you care about that you could share with us?
Yeah, the United Way, I've been working with a lot over the last probably at least 10 years. And just to see all of the different things, they're kind of like the organization of my passion of connecting the dots. And, I just see how they do so much of that and really go to what the community needs and come up with solutions to help fix what the community needs. So they're really personalized to each location and each town or county or whatever region that they serve. So that's really powerful, and I've seen some incredible impacts of what they've done, and I've just really have loved working with them as well.
I love that. And the United Way is just so great too, because it's that organization that goes out of its way to help, specifically help other causes be successful, right? So just truly, I totally agree with you there. Um, the other thing that people who follow our show and share our show throughout the different platforms we posted on know about me is I am crazy about books. So I always ask our guests, because I am making and building the ultimate Jessica book list of all time, books that have inspired your life or help you have personal growth or even helped your business grow. Those books are get me so excited. And then after, of course, I would love for you to share any books you've written yourself. But are there some books or a book that you could share that's inspired your life or help your business grow?
Yeah, when you asked that question, there were so many different ones, but the one that really jumped out at me was Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It is a short book, and it is so powerful to really, I think it's just a story about hope and being true to yourself and always looking for, ways that you can grow and don't limit yourself by what, we all think that we are. We have to think outside of the box and just believe in ourselves and trust that if we follow our heart, we can really do whatever it is that we set out to do. So uh, another great story. There are actually some kids stories, and there is one about this girl Michaela, and she is a special education student, a girl who has very severe disabilities and physical disabilities. And the story is really written and it's illustrated by her classmates. And so it's an incredible story about how kids with disabilities are not any different than anybody else. And that just showing how this is how, they're alike, and how these kids are sharing their story of how they learned about Michaela and how they were afraid of her at first, and how then as they got to know her, they realized that she's very much like them. And so, to see their friendships blossom, that I just love working with kids with special needs, kids and adults. And it's been a passion of mine. And I just love that story. It's one of those that I've read to our granddaughters. We have four granddaughters and now a grandson, but our granddaughters have requested that one often. If I'm ever putting them to bed, they love that story of Michaela. So those are some of the big ones. So they're short little books, but powerful.
Another book that is similar to that my daughter and I have read together over the holiday seasons is called The Paper Bag Christmas. It's
Mhm.
really an outstanding story. I highly recommend sharing it with your family. It's a great one to read with children who are probably about 7 or 8 years old and older.
Great.
It's fantastic for adults too. I mean, it's The Paper Bag Christmas is a great one. Now, share with us a little bit about the books you've written, Anne.
Yes. So I have a chapter in one book, and it is that one's right here. Depression Lied to Me. And that is, it is 14 women, and all of us are sharing our story of how depression impacted me. It impacted all of us. So we have very varying stories, and it is just very honest. And I know for myself, I was sexually assaulted in my early 20s, and that I went into much more in depth of that and how that specifically impacted me in that book. And it's incredible just to see women overcoming. It's just a very empowering book, and some of the stories are just really amazing. And I've actually shared. I do kind of a ministry. We do volunteer with juvenile from juvenile detention center. And these girls, I shared the book and I brought it in for them to review and look at. Is this something that they can read? And I've brought them several books and they're all reading. I was just there last night and they're all telling me about how incredible the stories are for them because they've been through so much trauma. So that's really exciting for me to be able to share that. And then my book, which is Shedding Lies, Living Beyond Childhood Trauma, it is my story that I often share in trainings, but it's going into it more and really giving a lot of the context and how I was impacted by some of the people, some of the adults in my life, teachers and just family friends and whoever, any of those people, those caring adults who really had a positive impact on me, as well as things that I would have gotten in that time. And so, I'm the youngest of seven, and growing up in the 70s, we didn't talk about a lot of things. And, for me, I ended up with full blown PTSD from an incident that happened in my early childhood. And it didn't go away. We think that things are going to go away as we get older. It doesn't. And so, really, the journey and to go through so much healing and to bring me to where I am now with my career, and that now I'm able to take my message and help others with what I do, and that I'm not just somebody that is, I'm telling you what to do. I actually have lived it. And I also am a family member. We've had a lot of different struggles. And so I try to be honest and open and be vulnerable. Brene Brown, I love all of her books. She's been extremely instrumental in me really sharing my story about and being vulnerable and helping others with that. So that'll be coming out within the next probably 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm really excited for that to come out, and I'll be doing some events, Zoom events, and some in person. And so I'm really excited for that book to come out.
Well, we'll try to make sure that we include all those links in the article connected to this interview and in the comments wherever we are posting this, which is a little bit of everywhere. So you may be watching it on YouTube, you might be on a LinkedIn Live with us. You just never know where we're going to pop up. All right. Well, it has been really, really awesome having you, Anne. And I just want to say to the audience, thank you for watching. And thank you, most importantly, for sharing, because you just never know who really needed to hear the message that Anne shared and the causes that she shared and the information on the book. You just never know whose lives you'll touch or improve in just that small way by sharing this. And if you're a profound professional, then please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on the show and feature you. But better yet, be a hero to someone else and be a hero to us and introduce us to someone you know that is a profound professional, is doing great and amazing things in their industry and touching the world in a greater way as well. So before we say goodbye, I always like to ask our guests to please share one last piece of inspiration or information. So Anne, what would you leave our guests with today?
One thing that I always like to remember and I like to share is that everyone is always a learner, and
Mm.
that if we think about that, that no matter what situation that comes across and or in front of us, that we can always remember that we can always learn from someone else, and just that helps us to have a little bit more empathy with each other, so for each other.
I think that's wonderful. Thank you again so much for being here today. Thank you, everybody, again for watching. As always, I am Jessica Koch, your host of Profound Professionals. Until next time, be kind to yourselves and be kind to each other. Bye, everybody.